So who is Gary Johnson? He's not a politician. He started a one-man handyman business in 1974 and grew it to employ over 1,000 employees. This entrepreneur built his own company from scratch. In 1994, he ran for governor of New Mexico as a complete outsider. The Republican Party told him that they like him and that they would include him in the debate process, but that he would never win, especially in a 2-to-1 Democratic state. He was at 2% of the poll until the very last weeks of the election, when he shot up to the low 20s and won the primary. He beat the Democratic incumbent 50-40. What was it that enabled this Mr. Smith to go to Santa Fe? It was simple: a common sense business approach to government, and that the best government is the one that governs the least, both in the marketplace and in our personal lives. And he delivered on it. He started out by vetoing many bills, cutting billions of dollars of spending, leaving his budgets balanced, one of only 4 states to do so. He increased education spending as a percentage of the budget, but realized that the best way to improve public education is school choice. He was the boldest in the mix, advocating for a full-blown voucher system. The Democratic legislature didn't budge on that issue, but where they did budge was that with all these bills being vetoed, only 2 vetoes got overridden. In 8 years, he had vetoed over 750 bills, more than the other governors in the country combined, cutting them in half. Term limited, he left office with a budget surplus. Not one tax raise in an 8-year period, a first for New Mexico, and 14 tax cuts. And like a true statesman, as soon as he left office, he left politics, and the first thing he did was climb to the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
He believes the Second Amendment should be read in plain language. He advocated for full open carry as governor and does not favor gun control laws. Gary would advocate on the repeal of Obamacare and the Republicans' prescription health benefit program, and for a 43% reduction in Medicaid and Medicare spending, block granting it to the state with 50 laboratories of best practices instead of one-size-fits-all failure. He proved in New Mexico that you could cut the budget by 1/3 and no one would notice. Medicare will engulf the entire federal budget in a short amount of time. We are on the verge of a monetary collapse due to our continued deficit spending. We have to stop printing money. We have to stop borrowing, and we have to stop taxing and regulating what makes this country productive. Gary Johnson would submit a balanced budget in 2013. Absolutely. In the case that the Congress we have now does what it does best, then Gary will veto any budget that where expenditures exceed revenues, and if they veto or if they override that veto, the spending then will still be lower than any candidate who would wait until 2015, 2020, or not even have an intention to balance the budget at all. If we don't stop all deficit spending on day one, then we will find ourselves without a country. The collapse of the US dollar will be the end of this great experiment in freedom. Gary Johnson believes in free markets. Part of that is tax and regulatory overhaul. His plan is the fair tax, a one-time consumption tax that exempts up to the poverty line, which would abolish the IRS and the income tax and create an environment of no tax for businesses and entrepreneurs. Would they not thrive? Consumers would benefit from lower costs of goods and services, and no taxation on productivity will mean real economic growth. No more using a tax code for loopholes or social engineering. National Review found that Governor Johnson had the highest job growth rate of all the GOP candidates. His response? I created thousands of jobs as a business person, but none as governor. Government doesn't create jobs, only the private sector can. He believes that the government should get out of the way and not grant special favors or regulatory conditions to benefit the politically well-connected. No bailouts. New Mexico did not hire one single public worker and saw a 1,000-person reduction in the state workforce. Gary Johnson has the moral fiber a presidential candidate should have. Have you ever read his 7 Principles of Good Government? He repeated these many times in front of his legislature, And I'm sure you've seen John Stossel with a video of Gary Johnson addressing his legislature saying, "Man is superior to government and must remain master over it, not the other way around," to the snide faces of the other politicians in his legislature. But hey, did I mention he supports term limits?
5 minutes.
And the national stage is clamoring for a different type of candidate. Gary Johnson is that candidate. And, include Gary. Thank you very much.
I love how we have young people participating and taking a stand and coming up here and speaking their convictions. I'll continue with the governor theme. We actually have, next is a representative of Governor Mitt Romney.